Hi everyone, and welcome back to episode 2 of Two Piece. This is Nat.
Hi.
My fiance, and I'm Rid. So I have not read One Piece. I've read up to Alabasta, and Nat has read all of it.
Up to the very exciting current chapters.
I got fed up of hearing Nat talking about One Piece, so I said I'll read One Piece. Yeah, so we're here to talk about Alabasta. My initial thoughts on the arc so far. I think I liked Alabasta as a whole about the same as the first East Blue stuff. There was some stuff that I liked that's been my favorite that we've seen so far. Some highs, but on the whole, like, pretty average, I would say.
Okay. And, obviously I've heard a little bit here and there, but we've tried to save most of the discussion for this, so I'll be interested to hear your more detailed thoughts on some of the specific arcs as we hit them.
So we open up and we're in the Grand Line.
I guess we're technically, we open up even before that as they're approaching the Grand Line, right? Because first we get that section where they sail into the Calm Belt before they go up Reverse Mountain.
Oh yeah, there's that whole part, and then they encounter the Laboon and Crocus. I really liked this part. I thought it was interesting that the first sort of obstacle that they encounter in the Grand Line wasn't just like a straight up villain, but was more of a just an interesting and sort of whimsical and fantastical creature, this like Laboon that swallows them whole.
Yeah, we see in Orangetown Luffy's ability with animals when he sort of relates to Choo-Choo and understands what he wants, and he does the same thing with Laboon, I think, when he paints the Straw Hat flag on his head. But yeah, it is really cool. I mean, you get the classic swallowed by a whale section, which is
that a classic?
Yeah, it's Jonah and the whale in the Bible. It happens in Pinocchio. I feel like that happens in a good number of stories.
Okay, I'm just ignorant to
No.
nautical stories then, because I was like, wow, a whale that swallows their ship, that's so original. I've never seen this before. But yeah, I really liked that. And then we also get introduced to this device called the log pose.
Yeah.
And so I think in general in Alabasta, there's just a lot of these little like gizmos and gadgets that come up, like the log pose, and then later on we see, like, this is talking about later stuff in Alabasta, but Nami's climate rod and all these things, and like just the gizmos and gadgets stuff really interesting, because it's like this is what the One Piece could be, setting up all this groundwork for what it might be, like what it would look like.
Interesting.
And okay. I think it's nice that we're gonna have all these like previous little things, like devices, and I've started to develop a list of what I think the One Piece is gonna be.
Awesome.
There's only 4. So the first one is the one that I've already told you, which is that there is no One Piece, and it's gonna be just the friends we made along the way. Which you've already told me is not gonna be the case, and I
think probably not. I hope not. Yeah, I think that would be kind of lame.
Yeah, I think it would be the worst possible situation.
Which is, like, the story is very friendship focused, and that's a very important recurring element of the story, but I think for that to be the One Piece, the treasure, and that's it, would feel disappointing.
Yeah, so like having all these already like treasures that they're starting to accumulate, like loot, is fun because it's setting that up really well. The second thing that I think the One Piece might be is immortality or something like that. This especially came up for me because of, we haven't talked about Drum Island yet, but Kureha living like extra long, and then there's also one panel in the Alabasta section where Luffy is talking about, wouldn't it be cool to live to 10,000 years with Usopp, and I was like, that's gotta be
interesting.
Is
okay,
that a foreshadowing?
I didn't remember that, but I'm glad you're noticing that. That's really cool. Yeah,
I think I wouldn't have noticed it if I wasn't already thinking about it because of Kureha. My third thing is, I think the One Piece, I might have mentioned this to you, I don't know if I've said it in the last episode, but I think the One Piece might be something that allows people with devil fruit powers to swim.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that, like, I don't think even in the last, I think you mentioned that like months ago before we ever started recording this, yeah. Okay,
yeah, so that's been on my mind. And especially it came up again in Alabasta where Warlord Crocodile prevents Luffy from using his gum powers in the prison that he constructs for them. The One Piece might have something to do with that.
Interesting.
You know what would be crazy is if the One Piece is like all of the devil fruit powers.
Oh, and it's
combined.
Just like that would be crazy.
I have one more. And I think that the One Piece could be something that allows you to bring people back from the dead.
Oh, that would be cool.
And that kind of goes with the immortality thing. I just think it's like thinking of treasure in the real world, like what is something that is just priceless, that would be being able to bring people back from the dead.
Yeah. So obviously I have to be very careful about what I say in response to any of these. All I will say is, especially this early in the story, I do not usually see people, and I certainly wasn't thinking of technology as playing a role. And you were mentioning that earlier with the little gadgets. Yeah. And that's an interesting train of thought, especially because I think technology is so weird and interesting in the One Piece world, especially like the snail phones.
I wouldn't even call it technology. It's like magic.
Yeah.
Even though they don't use it's, this is like a thing in fantasy where like sometimes they will use the word magic and they like acknowledge that something is magical. I don't know if they've used that yet in One Piece. Like I don't think they use the word magic.
In fact, I think in One Piece you are very much meant to read it as technology in the context of this world. At least that's my thought on it from like the context.
I think you're correct, but I just choose to see it as magical and epic fantasy.
That's allowed.
Because that's my favorite.
Well, and One Piece is very much like, whether or not that stuff is magic or technology, One Piece is totally an epic fantasy story. I no arguing that. Well, I'm actually curious on your opinion, since we were talking about Crocus and Laboon. There we get at the end of that section, as they're sailing away, Crocus sort of speaking to himself, but directed at Gold Roger. I think what he says is he the one we were waiting for? Referring to Luffy. I love the way that Oda handles little reveals like that, and I wanted to get your take on that reveal.
It's hard to say because I don't have any information about Gold Roger. Fast forwarding, we learned that his name is actually Gold D. Roger. We know that Monkey D. Luffy. And
we meet Portgas D. Ace as well.
Yes, we already talked about this a little bit, but I think it would be disappointing if it turned out that Gold D. Rogers was his father or like
Luffy's
somehow related to him. I just hate that in fantasy because I think it would be so much more interesting if it's just that Luffy has something about him that makes him the chosen one, other than he's related to the previous king of the pirates. And I liked it from the sense of building up Luffy as this chosen one, because he is the protagonist. It makes it more interesting to know that there's something special about the protagonist that you're reading. It makes it easier to read 1,000 chapters of something if you know that, oh, Luffy's special and you have to like pay attention to him. So I like it from that perspective, but I don't know that I thought of it much beyond that. After that scene, they have the log pose now. Something I found interesting about the log pose also was that it basically like builds in a plot device for Oda to be like, we have to stay on this island for however long he wants, basically. And I think that's an interesting sort of mechanism for him to have as an author, to be like, okay, we're gonna stay on this island for like a day, or if he wants to spend more time there, it has to be like 2 weeks for the log pose to be aligned or whatever it was.
I think it's cool. It's a very clever way to just like give you an excuse to explore more of the world.
Because otherwise it would be like, why do they even have to stay on this island for longer than a day? They could just be like, find the One Piece in like a month.
From Reverse Mountain, we go to Whiskey Peak, and I actually don't remember. Is it at Reverse Mountain that they get the Eternal Pose, or is that later?
They go to Whiskey Peak.
Go to Whiskey Peak. I mean, we get introduced to Baroque Works a little bit in Reverse Mountain, but really properly in Whiskey Peak. What did you think of that?
I thought it was like a sort of a fun Land of the Lotus Eaters vibe. It reminded me of that one chapter in Percy Jackson where they go to the casino and they just lose track of time.
We're on a time-sensitive mission right now.
And like Luffy's just eating a bunch and going crazy. We also get to see Luffy versus Zoro fight, which I know we've talked about this a little bit, is not your favorite, but personally I really liked it from the perspective of we never get to see the in-group fighting, like the intergroup ranking of strength, Luffy and Zoro were on even footing.
Yeah, and meanwhile, as they're going at it, the collateral damage is taking out dozens of Baroque Works agents. Very easy to assume that, like, oh, we're hitting the Grand Line, so everyone's going to be so much stronger because it was so hard for this crew to get here. But the Straw Hats are like a smaller crew, so it like puts into perspective, there are still going to be relatively normal people here.
And we also get introduced to Vivi in this chapter.
That's right.
Or not in this chapter.
Well, but in that arc, yeah.
Chapters.
What did you think of Vivi's introduction? And I guess we can do, what did you think of Vivi as a character overall?
She's not my favorite so far, but I thought her motivations and her being sort of like this sleeper agent in the Baroque Works was cool, and I liked her supersonic duck.
We do love Kuru. The Vivi introduction gets, I think, rightly criticized sometimes just because it's like Crocodile has this whole plan to infiltrate Alabasta and take it over, and he doesn't recognize that one of the royal family is a high-ranking member of his own organization. That's a little weird, but I think ultimately it's not a huge deal.
I think that might be why later on Alabasta was just a little underwhelming for me, because I was like, there is so many like plot holes happening right now. I just didn't feel like it was as coherent as some of the other plot lines at this point.
Yeah, I have a few. I think overall I really like Crocodile as a villain, but I have a few quibbles with him, and I can bring those up when we get to Alabasta too. But I think that, I definitely see what you mean about sort of taking away from the strength of his plan and him as a villain. So from Whiskey Peak, we go to Little Garden. And at least when I first saw Little Garden, I was so excited. We're seeing dinosaurs, we're seeing giants. Like it's a very cool and just sort of reinforces the fantasy of One Piece.
Yeah, I like the different vibes we've gotten already on the Grand Line. Is this like, we have the fantasy whale swallowing them whole, and then we have Whiskey Peak with its sort of weird vibe, Lotus Eaters, the Little Garden with like the Jurassic Park prehistoric stuff going on, and Donnie and Braggy were so fun.
Dory and Brody,
Oh yeah, Dory. It might have been Donnie in the...
I'm pretty sure it's Dory, but...
Okay, maybe my handwriting is bad.
I have no space to criticize anyone else's handwriting. That's all I'm gonna say.
But yeah, I like Dory and Brody. It reminded me of that one episode of Avatar where the brothers are fighting, and then...
Oh yeah, the one that everyone hates except you.
I thought it's a good episode.
I like that episode too. I think it is unfairly maligned, but she's talking about the Great Divide.
I don't know why. It astounds me that people don't like it.
I also like that episode actually, but yeah, it is like apparently the least popular episode by community consensus.
That's so interesting. Do people like Dorian Broggy?
Actually, yeah. I think that in the One Piece community, this section is pretty popular. I don't love this arc as much as some people, just because I think that towards the end it gets back towards those fights overstaying their welcome a little bit. But I do think like the giants being this part of the story and clearly setting something up for later. You know, they talk about their homeland, Elbaf.
Yeah. That's
all really cool. And so I think that's why people like this section so much.
Yeah, I also liked how it tied into Usopp's character development. There's a lot of talk of honor, and Usopp is like clearly very enamored with this concept. And yeah, I just like Usopp. I've said in the last episode that Usopp is one of my faves. I like that he got to have sort of a little bit more development.
Sanji sort of goes off and is on his Mr. Prince shit. He is like on the phone with Crocodile, doing a little deception.
Yeah, Sanji's like definitely a smooth talker, and I think that ties in with his like weird obsession with women. And yeah, Sanji's like the Matt Coffin of One Piece in so many ways. So I think that just ties in with his like smooth talker, trickster vibe. Yeah, he's kind of like the crew's sleeper agent. The crew will be off doing one thing, but then Sanji will be somewhere else, and then when the crew gets into a pickle, he'll be the one to come save them. The other thing that I had written down for this arc, Little Garden, is that Mr. 3 kind of is like the most evil villain yet.
Oh yeah.
And like Arlong had somewhat of a moral compass with Nami, but Mr. 3 just like kills Dory in cold blood and then enjoys torturing Broggy after the fact about it.
Interesting.
Which was like interesting to me because I feel like, yeah, he was just the most evil villain so far.
That's interesting. That did not stick out to me at the time, but I see what you're saying. I like the idea of, because you're totally right that, you know, different villains in One Piece, there's a spectrum of morality for sure.
Yeah.
It did not stick out to me that Mr. 3 was this like huge evil guy when I read that arc, but I see what you mean. Yeah.
I think it just stuck out to me because so far you haven't had anyone just kill someone in cold blood in One Piece, or at least not that I had noticed.
Well, but and we know that ultimately Dory and Broggy are both survive.
Yeah, but like Mr. 3 doesn't.
No, which is fair. Yeah, it does not change the the moral weight of Mr. 3's actions. So then, are we on to Drum Island?
Yeah. So Nami is getting sick, which puts her out of commission a little bit, and then there's also the reveal of the 16 seasons on the Grand Line.
Oh yeah.
I guess my question is this like structure of One Piece gonna follow the structure of these like 16 seasons, and like whether or not that's gonna impact the plot? Because I feel like the other thing that happens in these chapters, this like collection of chapters, is that you start to get an idea of the structure of One Piece as a whole, with like all these different islands, and then having the log pose dictate how long they have to stay at each island. So you start to have like an idea of what the story is going to look like going forward. And so I was just thinking whether or not the 16 seasons would tie into that. They go from Drum Island, where they're wearing like winter coats, to the desert. I liked that a lot.
I do. The abrupt weather changes are a big part of One Piece, and I always really enjoy that.
Yeah, I can't blame Nami for getting sick.
No. Like right when they arrive, and I think you and I actually talked about this a little bit before, but right when they arrive, there's sort of this tension where Luffy's trying to get Nami seen by a doctor. Are they like telling them to leave, or are they just telling them there's no doctor for them to see? And Luffy's like getting aggressive. And then Vivi sort of reminds him.
Luffy is definitely trying to fight and like fight his way to a doctor or whatever the case was. And Vivi, as all good friends do, calls him out and is like, hey, you should focus on getting Nami safe and like get her treatment instead of fighting. And Luffy admits he's wrong, which I think so far I feel like Luffy has had a lot of development as a leader.
Yes.
And I think that was like a really good stepping stone for him. Because he is like so childish at times, it's hard to imagine him growing into a leader. But then he also has this like really great instinct. And I think there's a panel in Drum Island specifically where he's like, he says like, I have instinct or something like that. He explicitly says that. I had that question in the last episode where I was like, what makes Luffy so good at seeking out these people and finding people for his crew? I think it's totally fine for it to just be, the answer just be instinct. And that's like a sort of intrinsic part of Luffy and his emotional intelligence. So yeah, I loved that he admits he's wrong. It was just a really great character development part.
I think it's
for him.
also great that it's coming from Vivi.
Yeah.
Where it's like, because they're both thinking about leadership, like this is a part of both of their futures, and so that's like an important part of their relationship.
Yeah, she's sort of like a mentor for Luffy almost, because she's like a princess and has that background.
But then also, and this is jumping forward a little bit, but there's that section in Alabasta where Luffy is reminding Vivi that, you know, you can't expect this revolution, like no one to get hurt in this revolution. Like sometimes people do have to get hurt, and it's like, so there's a give and take. They're both they both have things to learn from each other.
Yeah, and I mean, I especially liked that part as a famous battle/fight scene hater, because it was just like, not everything has to be a huge fight. And Luffy like taking Nami and running from the Lapins, the little rabbit guys, was just as interesting, if not more to me, than like a big fight scene. So I really liked Drum Island, specifically for the fact that there are fights that happen, but they wrap up pretty quickly. And there's a lot more sort of political and like that kind of discussion going on instead of just like a big fight scene. Yeah,
I totally agree. I think the thing that Drum Island sets up that One Piece is so good at is that, you know, you have these, like you said, the really tense scene where Luffy's running away from the big rabbit guys, and there's that section where he's climbing a cliff face, and all of this it's tension, it's cool, but it's also like it's serving to give you a look as he runs across this new island. So it's also giving you a look at this landscape and just another part of the world that Oda built. Obviously, the most important part of Drum Island is that we meet Chopper.
I love Chopper. I think Chopper is my favorite crew member. One, because he's so adorable, but two, and more importantly, because I think his backstory was so fun and interesting to learn about. And I love that Haralock was this he wasn't just like this straight up good doctor.
No, he was a quack.
Yeah, and like I liked that
Me too.
Oda looks at that kind of character and like sees the good in them, portrays him with compassion. Chopper at the end bringing the snow or the flower, was it the snow?
It was the cherry blossom.
Yeah, bringing the blossoms to Drum Island. I thought that was really beautiful, and I just like Chopper. I like characters who are outcasts and then they're shown kindness by one person and that one act of kindness like sets them on the right path to being like just like not giving into anger about isolation, about being isolated.
Chopper's flashback is sort of the next step up, where it's like this is where you get a sense of the quality of flashback that you can expect going forward in One Piece. And it's not like it's nothing super complicated at this point in the story, but I do like that Oda is just sort of taking a little stab at healthcare as an issue in this arc with Chopper.
Yeah.
And with Wapol in general, being, restricting who doctors are allowed to treat, that sort of thing.
I wonder if that's a problem in Japan, because I know it's like a big hot topic here, but
I think, it's definitely a big, a really big topic here, but I think it is still a problem the world over to some extent, whether it's a pricing issue or just an availability issue.
Yeah. I think Drum Island is, I mentioned early on that there was like things in this arc that are my favorite, and I think Drum Island is my favorite arc so far that we've seen. I like it more than
understandable.
Anything in East Blue. There's a little bit more complexity going on in Drum Island that I think Arlong Park was like fairly straightforward. Even Usopp gets a little bit of a moment to shine where he's like, I'll carry Dalton up the hill, and like he doesn't end up doing it, but it's just the fact that he was prepared to do it, I think speaks to Usopp's character.
So 2 other things, at least that I want to touch on before we move on to Alabasta. Mainly, first, just Dr. Kureha in general. I feel like we haven't really talked about her yet.
Yeah, I love when... This is a thing that I just in general love, is when women over the age of 40 are portrayed in a very cool way.
Yeah.
I read Olga Tokarczuk's Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead, and that has a like older woman as the main character. I like when that happens in fiction, and especially in a manga where I feel like it's, I don't know, you wouldn't like see an old
not
woman
what you expect.
Portrayed as like this cool doctor, and like she has like all this panache, and she's like very stylish,
and she's not just cool, she's also like mysterious.
She's,
although it's funny because she's always trying to get people to ask her about the secrets of her old age, and she's more mysterious because nobody ever asks.
But that's what I'm saying, maybe the One Piece is,
it might be
immortality.
I do have thoughts about the secret to Kureha's old age that we can discuss in like 400 chapters. But the other thing I think is cool about her is her introduction. My immediate reaction when she was introduced, because she's like riding in with Chopper like on a reindeer, I was like, oh, it's Santa.
Well, there is a lot of Santa with like the reindeer going, what was that about? I don't know. I thought originally that Kureha was gonna be the new crew member, and I thought that would have been cool. But then when Chopper is introduced by name, I was like, oh, I've seen Chopper before, like you guys talking about him.
Well, he's also my profile picture on Discord.
So it's like, okay, he's obviously gonna be the crew member.
Well, the other thing about Kureha, and I think the reason that Kureha can't be the crew member, what I mean by this, I think you'll probably get it now, but you'll get it more and more as we go on. She knows too much. And you can't have someone who knows too much join the Straw Hats.
Gold D. Rogers' crew, or she knew him?
So it's not said one way or another if she's was part of his crew. But at the end, she does say that his name wasn't Gold Roger, it was Gold D. Rogers. So she knew that. And that's another one like that Crocus reveal, where I'm like, that it has layers to it. There are There's the obvious, like, okay, he has that same middle initial as Luffy, and then we later learn his Ace. So it's like that, there's that question, but there are more questions that I might not bring up yet, but like that, it raises a lot of questions.
Yeah, having that adds like a little bit of texture to the world where it's like there's been characters before Luffy's crew, you know? So it's like it's a whole world. It's not just Luffy's storyline. There's like all this stuff that happened in history to the world.
To go off of what you were saying there, I think that's especially relevant with all the flashbacks, where it is like there's so much context to this world and like so much history with the previous generation.
The other thing about Chopper is that we have now 2 devil fruit powered.
That's true. I guess, yeah, Chopper is the second devil fruit user on the crew.
And then by the end we'll have 3 because
of
Nico
Robin.
Arc or this saga really like blows up the devil fruit powers because of the
Baroque works.
I remember in the last episode I was talking about whether or not that would be like sort of an exclusive thing that just Luffy and like a few people have, and then this arc was like, well, you have a devil fruit, you have a devil fruit.
It turns out they're not that uncommon. The other thing about Chopper that I just want to mention before I forget is it is hilarious that he has the human fruit. Like that's
the human fruit. If you could have a devil fruit, what would yours be?
I don't think I should say that.
Okay.
I don't think I should answer that question.
That's fucked up.
No, not because it's fucked up, just because it's a spoiler.
No, I know.
What would of the ones we've seen so far, what would you want?
Well, I meant more like you could just make up your
okay. I'll have to think about that then. That's a tough one. Do you have one in mind?
I think mine is kind of boring. I would have the book power, and it would be like I can read a book like super fast.
Okay.
I don't know if that's boring.
I don't know if it's boring. I don't know if I would want that because I enjoy the reading of the book.
Yeah.
I do also enjoy having all the information in my head, so I don't know. That it would be useful. I don't know if I would actually want that.
That's fair. Journey before destination.
That's so true. Want to move on to Alabasta?
Sure. I'll just say, I already said this at the beginning, Alabasta was not my favorite. We talked about the plot holes with Crocodile and Vivi, and then so I recognize that Oda provides like almost like these infographics of like what's going on to like help the reader be situated, but I posit that if you need infographics to help the reader understand what's going on, maybe it's a little too incoherent.
For me, Alabasta, the everything going on wasn't so much a problem. But I definitely agree with you on the like plot issues and the other one that I'll bring up aside from Vivi. And this goes back to, I think, a recurring issue in One Piece that most of the community is going to agree with us on, is that One Piece is not the best at handling death. Where it's like, you have that Pell sacrifices himself at the end, but then isn't actually dead.
Yeah.
And I think the bigger issue in this arc actually is that Crocodile has several opportunities where it would have just made a lot of sense to kill Luffy.
Yes.
And instead he's just like, I'll throw him in prison or I'll leave him for dead, which is like the classic villain mistake.
Yeah.
And the fact that happens a few times, I think, Crocodile is supposed to be this really intimidating and really calculating character, and I think that takes away from that image.
Yeah, and like Crocodile literally like stabs Luffy through with the
hook, yeah.
Yeah, and there's no way Luffy could survive that. I just thought it didn't make sense for Luffy to survive that, and it was frustrating to like, because I think One Piece does this a lot with the battles where they'll like fight and then the villain doesn't kill Luffy, and then Luffy has the opportunity to think of something to kill the villain, or not kill the villain, to like defeat the villain. He comes back and then they fight again, and then it happens again, and it's like, oh my god, let's wrap it up. Come on, guys.
I will say though, the reason, I have all these criticisms, the reason I still love Alabasta is because when Luffy comes back, it is pretty cool. Like, first he has the water, and that's a very cool, like, adaptation to Crocodile's power. And then he is fighting him with his own blood, which is just, I know you're not a huge fight enjoyer, but that's like a really cool moment for me.
That was cool, but it was like one cool moment after like 10 chapters of fighting.
Well, I don't know. I liked all of it. But this is like totally just an agree to disagree area. I also think that Zoro's fight with Dad's Bones, where he learns to cut iron, is really cool.
That was cool. I think of the 3 fights, so there's the Zoro fight, the Nami fight, and then the Usopp fight.
And the Sanji fight.
Oh, yeah.
With Von Clay.
Yeah, I liked the Nami fight the most because you get to see Nami actually fight. Because she's, up until this point, been more of a brains over brawn character.
And even when she's fighting, it's like, it's totally magical, but like within the universe, it feels like it's a brain fight. Like Nami is like outsmarting her
figuring
opponent.
out how to create a tornado on the spot using pressure and air and water. That was cool.
Nami becoming a weather mage is a fun arc.
Yeah, and it makes sense for her like navigation.
Totally, yeah, it's like the best power set for her to have as a navigator.
Like overall, I think the like different fights and everything didn't work as much for me.
Fair enough.
The one thing that I did like about Alabasta, I loved the character design for Pell, the Falcon.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool. Very good character design. There's some baddies in One Piece. I forget what number she is, but the, like, Spike lady.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. That was... I was like, okay.
Making you feel things?
No! But I was like, I'm sure this is titillating for some people.
So other important stuff that happens in Alabasta. First, we meet Ace.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That was pretty cool, and we've kind of glossed over that already a bit because we mentioned him, but I guess Luffy can have a brother. I wonder if there's some sort of tension there with Luffy and Ace, because like I can imagine, I don't know, like I don't know what Luffy's childhood was like, but like the idea of him having a big brother who like went off to do his own thing and like left Luffy behind. I wonder if there's like tension there, or if that's somewhere, or if that's like a place that Oda's gonna go to. But yeah, it just makes me wonder about his past, and like I don't think we know who Luffy's father is.
At this point, we do not.
Yeah, so, but that's also makes me worried. I'm like, what if Goldie Rogers is gonna be Luffy's father? That would be bad.
I will say nothing. What else is important in Alabasta?
The Pluton.
Yeah, the ancient weapons and the poneglyphs.
Yeah, we don't actually get to see the Pluton like play out, which is probably for the best.
Yeah.
But that again, this is like coming back to like all of the technology and like building up what the One Piece could be. Like maybe the One Piece is like the anti-weapon to the Pluton or something like that.
We also have the poneglyphs, which seem to have like secrets, and do we learn at this point like anything about the time period that the poneglyphs are from, anything about history surrounding that?
We might, but I don't remember if we do.
I'm gonna Google something because I don't want to spoil anything.
Okay.
Okay, never mind. The poneglyphs are cool. There's like some secrets, and also we learned that Robin is one of very few people in the world who can read them.
Yeah.
And now she's on our crew, so that's pretty cool.
Well, you told me to stop reading at 217, which is like when Robin shows up on the ship and is like, I want to join your crew, which is interesting because I think she's the first person, besides maybe Usopp, where it wasn't Luffy seeking her out.
I think she is the first person.
Okay, yes, because Usopp, Luffy wants him on his crew. Yeah. Yeah, so she's like the first crew member who's like volunteering to be part of the crew, which is interesting. I wonder why. And you told me to stop reading at 2:17.
I did tell you to stop reading at 2:17. And I didn't
go past that because it was 2 a.m.
Okay, we're at the end of the Alabasta saga. Any final thoughts? And do you want to update your character ranking or your arc ranking? Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to do my updated crew member ranking, and I'm leaving Luffy out because Luffy doesn't count.
He does.
Okay, fine. I'll keep Luffy in. Bottom, I think Sanji got demoted in this one a little bit because the whole thing in Alabasta of him like dressing the women in the really skimpy outfits, I was like, come on, Sanji.
Yeah, that's fair.
I still do like Sanji though. He is the Matt Cawthon of One Piece, and
Matt if he didn't get any.
So true. So Sanji's on the bottom, but with love and peace.
So true.
Zoro next up.
Okay.
Usopp.
Okay.
Next, Nami. Chopper. Luffy.
Luffy number 1.
Yeah.
Interesting. Nice. You love to see that. I love all of them, but Luffy is at this point probably also my favorite. Nami might be above him.
Mm-hmm.
And Chopper, I think, would have been third for me at that point. But yeah, I love Luffy. One thing, before we get to the arc ranking, one thing that I forgot to mention is very important, the panel at the end where all the Straw Hats are sticking up their arms for Vivi.
Yeah.
That is like, well, I want your thoughts on it first.
It was a really nice panel. I took a screenshot of it.
Yes. Okay.
I might put that in the thumbnail because it was
yeah, that's a good idea.
It was a good panel. I like that Vivi doesn't end up on the crew because now they're starting to have like these allies in places so that they can come back to, and like I imagine they could always like come back to Alabasta as like a home base. I don't know if that's gonna end up happening, but it's good that they're starting to like develop friendships in these different areas.
I agree. Vivi is gonna be a world leader, but they have that relationship. I think that's really cool. Yeah,
and we didn't talk about this, but the one thing I did like about Alabasta is that we get Smoker is a little bit more humanized, and he's shown to be like, the Navy thus far has been very one note, and like they've just been like kind of not evil, but just like very lawful evil. Yeah. If that makes sense. And so Smoker looking at Luffy and being like, I'm gonna let you go this one time. Because I think also Smoker saw that Crocodile was one of the warlords. Yep. And that sort of shook his worldview a little bit. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. I'm glad. I had totally forgotten about that. I'm glad you pointed that out.
Do you want to do the arc ranking?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I don't remember all of the East Blue Saga arcs, so I'm just going to rank the Alabasta.
That's fine. Okay. That's allowed.
So I think within Alabasta, my ranking is definitely going to be Drum Island.
Number 1, okay.
Number 1. Second, Little Garden.
Okay.
Or actually, I think I might put the Laboon Crocus stuff.
Okay, Reverse Mountain.
Yeah,
Second.
Reverse Mountain.
That's fair, actually.
Little Garden, Alabasta, and then Whiskey Peak.
It's not exactly how I would have ranked it, but it's not so dissimilar from how I would have ranked it.
How would you ranked it?
Probably Alabasta number 1, then Drum Island, then Reverse Mountain, Little Garden, Whiskey Peak. In terms of like your favorite arcs that you remember from East Blue, how would it compare? I know you said Drum Island you would put above Arlong Park. Would Arlong Park still be second for you overall?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty fair.
What's my homework assignment?
Your homework assignment. Your homework assignment, let me actually double check, because I don't have this one like committed to memory the same way I did with last episode. I believe your homework is to read to chapter 302.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's less than...
That is less than this time, yeah. Okay. So, good luck, and we'll see you then.
All right. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and we will catch you in the next episode.